the whole Johnny Somali story, which I thought it was worth making a quick little update about because it's pretty crazy. So, as we know, on April 15th, Johnny was sentenced and he was found guilty, and he was essentially sentenced to 6 months in prison with labor, and he was put on a S offender registry for about 5 years here in South Korea, meaning he can't go to playgrounds, just anything that helps women and children or something like that.
Vulnerable population, young people, adolescents, the disabled. So basically, he can't get into situations like that.
And there's a lot of people arguing, saying that he has to register when he gets home to the U.S. I'm not so sure about that, but that's what a lot of people are saying. So it'll definitely be interesting to see what happens then. But we have some new updates, and apparently it looks like he could be getting more prison time than what he actually received in the sentencing, because there was a few things. So now apparently it seems like there's going to be an appeal, and there was also some information about how the sentence technically could be illegal.
Yes, I've noticed both things, but I think the big thing is that a lawyer from Nova Law Firm here in Seoul, Lee Dong-ho, he has submitted a petition to the prosecutor's office to appeal this decision and go for a higher sentence. So that means if the prosecutor agrees to do that, according to this petition, that he'll go ahead and we'll start it all over again.
So what did he say in particular?
He started out with the positive things. He welcomes the conviction. He welcomes the fact that he went to prison and there's no suspended sentence, which we all welcome. And those things he welcomed. He also welcomed the fact that the judge pointed out 3 aggravating factors. I think there are more aggravating factors in my opinion, but the judge pointed out 3 aggravating factors for sentencing. Disrespecting the law on YouTube. Like outwardly disrespecting Korean law repeatedly. We all know he did that. Continuing to harass people online, unspecified victims, unknown victims, unidentified. So these are crimes that were unindicted. And so he pointed that out. That was happening during the trial. He pointed that out. And also that his activity online could incite copycat crimes. So all of those things the judge said are very serious. And so Lee Dong-ho says, so why didn't you take those aggravating circumstances into consideration with the sentencing length? 6 months for all that?
Yeah.
Like, where did the aggravating factors come in? But what he really took issue with was the judge saying that he did not, it was not proven that the victims in the deepfake case suffered sufficient or severe shame. So that statement, the lawyer Lee Dong-ho, he really takes issue with, and he says, why such a low sentence? Yeah. Especially since my client, in fact, did suffer shame and did suffer damage as a result. So what did the victim say in court when she was testifying? She did say that his actions led to a lot of hate and insults by the Korean public against her, things that would never have happened if it weren't for him. And she said that was very damaging and very difficult. She did speak of the shame that she felt from the whole thing, but she spoke in a sort of a nuanced way, and she was very calm and composed on the stand.
Right.
And this lawyer is very concerned that her calm and composure led people to think everything's okay. And he says that sends a very bad message, that if you are a victim, that you're gonna have to put on an emotional act or something like that in order to get, results. He said that this is a very low sentence. It's a lenient sentence that is unreasonably lenient, like materially unreasonable. And so that's his opinion. And he says that I'm going to do everything I can to support the prosecution in this appeal, and we hope to raise the sentence to something that's more in keeping with the precedent.
Interesting. So there was also this thing where a lot of people were saying that the sentence was illegal because it was too low, because apparently the minimum sentence for each deepfake charge is 6 months each.
It's apparently if you mitigate it, if you take all the mitigating factors, and the defendant has apologized and he's made amends with the victims, and there's been restitution, reconciliation, and if it's only that crime of the deepfake, it's 4 for each. It's 4 for the first count, and then for each additional count you go half, right? So 6 months.
Right.
So that's how you could come to 6 months for 2 deepfakes. Now, where's the obstruction of business?
Right.
So
that's the detention, I guess, but it's not considered.
It's actually not the detention. The detention is for the Minor Crimes Act.
Oh, okay.
So for the obstruction of business, the minimum is 1 million won fine. You could also
Okay.
get prison time for that up to 5 years, right?
Yeah.
And in our opinion, this is aggravated enough that it merits prison. But there is no mention even of a fine. And how much would the fine be? So you have minimum 1 million won, and then 3 additional counts. You have 500 for each, so that would be 2,500,000 won. So if he
Right.
was going to give the minimum sentence, it should have been 6 months for the deepfakes and 2.5 million won. But with all these aggravating factors, this just doesn't add up.
Right.
So I think the omission of the that 6-month length without either the fine or additional time for the obstruction of business, he's way outside of the guidelines, and that's against Korean law.
Okay. So let's say if the appeal does go through, what then happens to Johnny?
It will take. It could actually be very short or very long, depending on what happens. So
Okay.
if they decide to call witnesses, I reckon that they will call witnesses because they want some correction to the record, right?
Okay.
Then you get that additional 3 months where you're waiting for the witness, and then if there's any delay, it could go on. But if it turns out to be a very simple case with no witnesses, they could have 3 hearings max. But in any case, it's going to take 2 to 4 months for the first hearing to even happen. If the prosecutor appeals, which a lot of people are calling for them to do.
Interesting. And then he will have to sit in prison for the whole time, or how
That's
long
right.
does he have to sit in prison if the appeal keeps going on? Or how long can he sit in prison after the 6 months?
So he'll serve his 6-month sentence, and
Yeah.
if this trial goes on, say 9 months, the prosecutor can ask that he remain detained in prison during that period.
Right.
So it's possible, like if it takes more than the 6 months, that he'll stay and the trial will continue.
And how long can he be held in prison on top of the 6 months that he currently has?
I think there's a 6-month max. So say the trial goes on an unusually long time, like over 6 months or like over a year, something like that. After an additional 6 months, they would have to let him out, but he would still have to stay in Korea. And just like he did during the first trial.
Right. So he's back to square one, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, the reason I said first trial just now is because all of the Lee Dong-ho and all of the Korean press, they're referring to this as the first trial, meaning there's an assumption that there's going to be a second one, part 2.
So that is very interesting. Is there any other takes that you saw in Korean media? Like overall, what does the Korean population think about this?
I think it's very similar around the world. There are people who are I think everybody should be very satisfied with the fact that not satisfied, but appreciative of the fact that he was convicted of on all counts, and that he went to prison with no suspended sentence, which is exactly what needed to happen. But it turns out that that's just a first step. And
Interesting.
a lot of people are just upset about the length. I would say it's about 60% are upset about the length.
Right. But then a lot of people are just happy he actually got a sentence.
Yeah, I
to begin
think
with.
even out of those who are happy about him getting the sentence, most of them are also unhappy about the length of the sentence.
Right. And I mean, he went on the whole time on his stream. He was
Not
claiming
one
that he
day.
was going to go home, essentially.
Right.
So that's also interesting to see. But I mean, apparently you saw his reaction in court because you were kind of in front of him.
Right.
How was he in court?
He looked sad and he looked sort of dejected, sort of worried. His brow was furrowed, but no reaction really.
Okay.
No reaction to what was going on. There was clearly some he was misunderstanding what was going on when they did the pre-detention hearing, which is a very unusual procedure. So I was confused about why it was happening, but I knew it was happening, so I could understand why he was confused about that too. I don't even
Right.
think that needed to happen. But there was no reaction, and when they let him out the door, he walked slowly but calmly, like out the side door into the processing area, which I saw.
He seemed very stiff. Like he was really
Yeah.
clenching. It seemed like everything. Like it seemed like he was clenching his fists
Right.
really hard.
But I don't know that he fully understood what was happening.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do you think happened? So obviously when he was carried away, how quickly or how long did it take, do you think, until he realized, oh, I'm actually going to jail and not going home?
That's
Or
hard to
prison.
say, but I think it's possible that it took a while. And I'll
Really?
tell you this, once you go through that door, they will give you a piece of paper to read with your rights as far as an appeal. They make that very clear. The court is very good about making it very clear that you have the right to an appeal and how to do it, and they do make it very easy to do an appeal. But what I heard from a foreigner who is detained and or is sentenced to prison, once you go through that door, nobody's helping you with anything.
Right.
You are not going to know what's going on at any given period. They're just going to tell you the minimum of what you need to do. If you ask questions, they're going to tell you to shut up.
Right.
So the last communication about his situation occurred in the courtroom.
Oh, wow. And then you also have the aspect of where it seems like Johnny's lawyer was telling him that he didn't think that he was going to go to prison at all.
So we've seen his posts on social media, which up to the morning of the sentencing indicated that thought he was going to get off scot-free.
Yeah.
Right? And we do know that his lawyer told him from beginning to end, don't worry, you're an American, they're not going to do anything to you, and he would just laugh it off. And that is the lawyer who was representing him. So he had that little bird tweeting in his ear.
And the lawyer didn't even show up for the sentencing.
The lawyer was not at the sentencing, that's right.
Which is super interesting. So his lawyer was not there, Hank was not there, and then people were speculating that his mother was going to be there, and his mother was not there.
Right.
So, do you have anything else to add to this update?
I think we got to keep the discussion going, and I think the Korean public needs to keep the discussion going. And I'm glad that this lawyer is taking some action here, because he was like, when I read all the things he had to say, it's like he took the words right out of my mouth.
Right.
And he's speaking up, not just to the prosecutor's office, but to the press.
So we have until Wednesday of next week?
Tuesday night at midnight.
Tuesday night at midnight. That's when we know if there'll be an appeal or not.
Right.
Interesting. So I guess we have to stay tuned till then. It'll be really interesting to see what happens. Thank you guys so much for the support. Here in beautiful Seoul again. And it's lovely here. I enjoy coming here. But it'll be good to go home and grind out regular content as well. So I'll see you guys soon. Thank you so much to Gabe for all the help through all this. I will also link his channel, Culture Brat, down below. And I'll see you guys next video. Peace, guys.